Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We're powered by CLNS Radio. Today's show, we're going to do NBA awards. I know it's a little bit of a cliche this time of the year to do this sort of podcast. You've already listened to about 100 of them, but you know what? I think you probably want to listen to one more. Today on the show, we have my good buddy Dieter Kurtenbach from over at Fox Sports. And it was funny, we were just talking before we got on the podcast. My dog demanded to go outside, and he was asking me how often the dog shits in the middle of my apartment, and it's more often than I'm willing to admit. I will tell you that.
This is the stuff that they come for. Come for the basketball analysis, stay for the dog shitting on the floor analysis.
Yes. There was one podcast, I can't remember if it was with you or with someone else, maybe Aaron Torres. Maybe it's just a Fox thing, actually, where the dog...
Does typically bodily reactions come when you hear the name. I get it.
But yeah, no, the dog demanded to go out on the balcony. I will be watching her to make sure she doesn't go to the bathroom, because then Laura will get super upset. And I will not have time to clean it up before I have to go, because I am going to Anaheim, Calgary tonight to go see some playoff hockey, taking Laura to her first playoff hockey game. There's nothing really like it. I know that you love hockey, but there's nothing. It's so hard to explain how incredible playoff hockey is to people who just kind of go, "Oh, hockey, whatever," isn't it?
Imagine the Game 7 of the World Series last year, just sort of how everybody was on edge just because it was the Cubs in the World Series, and how much better that made baseball. Every playoff hockey game has that exact kind of emotion.
Yes.
It's so tense all the time because you don't know. This is the beauty of goalie sports. I think a lot of people get frustrated with goalie sports when it's not necessarily a fair game. The best team doesn't always win, things like that. But in the playoffs, when every pass, every shot is so crucial, and fairness doesn't necessarily win out, it's just excruciating to watch. I love it.
Yeah, Jake Allen last night saved 55 pucks against Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota thoroughly outplayed St. Louis, but St. Louis wins the game in overtime because their goalie just goes insane. It's a wild sport. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, you get some Stanley Cup champions, not necessarily every year or even every 2 years, but once every 3 or 4 years, you'll get a Stanley Cup champion that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I remember when Jonathan Quick stood on his head for the Kings a few years back.
The 8th seed, yeah.
Yeah, it's listen, were the Kings a very good team? Yes, there's a lot of parity in the NHL. And the difference between the 1 and the 8 seed really isn't as drastic as the 1 and the 8 seed in the NBA, or it's a lot closer to the baseball playoffs. But man, I mean, when you get a goalie that's hot, it's incredible to watch, and it's just excruciating. It's just the only word I can use for it is excruciating, and that's something that you don't get a lot in sports. I think that so often in our very analytically based sports world, we sort of know the outcomes and can parse down those details that are going to make or break the game, and we can pretty much figure out what's going to happen based on a few key indicators. You never know what's going to happen in playoff hockey, and it's just it's enthralling.
And it's really interesting that you kind of bring that up, because I think it actually kind of dovetails nicely in starting talking about these NBA awards, because we had an NBA MVP race this year that was probably the most hotly contested that I can remember in the last decade. Decade and a half since
easy.
I can remember basketball, at least. So let's start with, who do you have fourth? Because there are 4 guys that everyone has, LeBron, Kawhi, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. Who do you have fourth in this race?
I have Kawhi Leonard fourth in this race, and I don't feel great about it because I know a lot of people have decided Kawhi Leonard's the MVP because they didn't want to choose. I'll be very upfront. I very much dislike the way both Russell Westbrook and James Harden play. And I wanted every reason to vote for LeBron James because he's having an exceptional, historic offensive year. But the fact that he just took so many games off on defense and the Cavs totally underperformed, I couldn't make that leap. And I really think it was between those 3 guys for that top spot. With Kawhi, if we're going to talk, a lot of people, well, he's the best player on the second best team. Well, okay, then we should talk about Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry, who were the best players respective periods of time on the best team in the NBA.
Which, by the way, I have Steph at 5 on my end.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I personally, I have Durant at 5.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Durant was unbelievable, and it's a shame that he missed as much time as he did. But I do believe that he was that. There's a little bit of recency bias. It doesn't matter Steph or Durant. I think that's fair. But if we're going to talk about, okay, well, Kawhi's a defensive monster, and he's arguably the greatest perimeter defender the NBA's ever seen. Well, one, a lot of the advanced numbers, and I know that there's some flaws in those, and there's a lot of bad luck this year, but that doesn't really show this year, to be totally honest. And two, he just wasn't the offensive killer. He's an exceptionally efficient and clean offensive player, but he doesn't strike fear into the hearts of millions when he has the ball late in the game. And you saw, he had a couple of pretty good late game performances and things like that, but it was never this inevitability, which you really want from an MVP. You want that air of inevitability. He's going to take the game over and he can win it. Whether, whatever he needs to do, he has that gravity. If we're going to talk about the defensive aspect, I totally get it. But then we should also include Rudy Gobert and Draymond Green in the MVP debate, because I think they were markedly better defenders this year than Kawhi Leonard, as evidenced by the DPOY award, and we're not having that conversation. So I have Kawhi fourth.
Well, Kawhi, is probably twice the offensive player that both of those guys are, right? So,
I don't disagree with that, but I could argue that the gap between Gobert and Draymond and Kawhi this year, when you have to, listen, the eye test says something that they're all in the same class and that, Kawhi's a different beast and all that stuff. But absolutely, Kawhi's a much better offensive player. He's fourth in the MVP voting. But I just don't buy necessarily the defensive argument as much as perhaps last year when he came in second and I thought deserved a few first place votes.
Yeah, I have LeBron at 4.
Okay.
I think that if we were doing like a best player in the NBA award, I would still vote LeBron.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
But
yeah, no, there's no question that LeBron's the best player in the NBA.
Right, but like you mentioned, him taking plays off defensively.
Or also 9% of them off.
Yeah, he took off through the first 50 games of the year, took off a lot of plays defensively, and that's fine. He needs to really be preserving himself for the NBA playoffs.
Right.
But here's the thing with LeBron. I think he's actually a little bit at fault here for the way the Cavs have dovetailed late in the season.
Totally.
You just see the reports that come out of Cleveland, and they have to end up signing Dante Jones and people like that to try and find a way to bring more accountability to the roster between Tyronn Lue and LeBron.
Yeah,
I don't like that whole idea. And whenever this race is so close between the top 4, I'm okay kind of downgrading LeBron and putting him at 4 for that reason.
Right. No, absolutely. If LeBron didn't have the first 26-8 and nearly 60% EFG season in the history of the NBA, LeBron wouldn't even be in the top 5 for me because there's so many other factors going on. The fact that he barely played defense and was clearly lollygagging it for most of the year. The fact that his team so woefully underperformed and that he was at the crux of that. And the fact that he sort of was able to turn it on and turn it off. We all agree that if you had 1 game or 10 games or 100 games against the aliens, the Bill Simmons argument, you take LeBron James. But this season doesn't necessarily deserve to be enshrined as, he only has 1 MVP to my recollection. And this is not even in the top 10 seasons of his career if you take in the whole scope. So I if it wasn't for that historical standard, he wouldn't be third on my list, but I who really cares? It comes down to the 2 guys. It comes down to Harden and Westbrook, and I think it's a fundamental disagreement on those 2 guys. Who do you have as your MVP?
So yeah, I have Kawhi at 3, and then at number 1, I literally have gone back and forth on this even today.
Yeah,
and there are 2 different ways you can go about it. They both put up incredibly historic years, right?
Totally.
Russell Westbrook ends up becoming the first player to put up a triple-double in a season since Oscar Robertson, and he does it on 20 possessions less per game. James Harden puts up the most points produced, whenever you add points and points plus assists per game in NBA history. And again, that is also just totally insane to me.
Correct. On a tremendous true shooting percentage.
Yes.
By the way.
There are so many different ways that you could parse this MVP race. And from an analytical standpoint, I don't really think that there's any conclusion to truly come to. So here's the thing. you could start going toward like James Harden and saying like, okay, if James Harden wins, this is going to be Mike D'Antoni's third MVP award basically, because his offensive system is just so advanced and James Harden is such a perfect fit for that offensive system. You can start downgrading there. You can start downgrading Russell Westbrook for taking 1 billion possessions of usage and maybe, providing a cap on how good his team can possibly be.
The canceling out, the way I viewed it is these guys cancel out in so many different ways. They shot the exact same percentage from the field. Yes, Harden had a system that was built for maximum efficiency, but Westbrook had the usage that was up there. All of these things, they just cancel and cancel and cancel and cancel. It comes down to this, in my opinion. It's a black and white issue. Do you believe in the box score or do you believe in the advanced analytics? And if you believe in the box score, then you have a very clear-cut candidate. It's Russell Westbrook. He had the best box score stats in a very long time.
Yeah, maybe NBA history.
Correct. And if you believe in analytics, I think that while Westbrook was impressive, he did shoot 5 more times per game than Harden, and he didn't produce as much, so it was close. You have to go with Harden. And I voted for Harden because I believe in the analytics. I believe that is more telling than somebody grabbing 2 defensive rebounds when 2 centers clear out on a missed free throw, when everyone's leaking out in the second quarter. I don't believe in the exponential value of 10/9 when it comes to a statistic.
I totally agree with that 1,000% of the way, and that's why I'm ultimately not like totally swayed by the triple-double aspect of this.
Right.
Having said that, the way that I kind of think about this award, given the fact that I just kind of went through this thing where I said, you could parse this 97 different directions. You could parse it, even within analytics, you can parse it one way or the other, I think.
Oh, totally. You can work it however you want. I think that it does, the cards do, maybe it's 26 cards to 24 cards for Harden in the deck. But at the same time, I do think that Harden wins out slightly in the analytical factor, and I think we should take all of that information into play. And that's where I stood on it.
Yeah. So ultimately what it came down to for me was whenever I think kind of everything is equal, and I do, and I think that, you could even throw LeBron and you could throw Kawhi into this part of the argument as well. Okay. Whenever I think of everything being equal, I just take a step back. Whenever it comes to awards and whenever it comes to anything like this and think, okay, 10 years down the road, how am I going to remember this season? What am I going to remember most from, the 2016-17 NBA season? And to me, it's going to be Russ. I'm going to remember Russ going wild at the end of games and having maybe the best clutch season, like maybe in NBA history, given how much usage he had and given all of the crazy shots he hit at the end, including the Denver shot last week.
Right.
Like, to me, it's ultimately
that's
just going to...
a totally fair statement.
That's what it came down to for me. Like, I'm just going to remember this season as the year that Russell Westbrook lost Kevin Durant and still destroyed worlds and took Oklahoma City to the NBA playoffs. Like,
yeah,
I think that...
I can buy that.
And I think that ultimately the way Russ plays, and I've seen this argument, I think maybe from like Nate Duncan, maybe from Zach Lowe, maybe from anywhere, like that maybe the way Russell Westbrook plays limits your capability to get over the hump if he's your best player. Maybe he limits your ability to get up to 60 wins. Like Kawhi Leonard clearly does not limit that ability. Kawhi is the kind of guy who takes you from 50 to 60 wins. Russ, I don't know if he's that guy. But just when I think back on this season, I'm going to remember Russ destroying worlds and throwing up 43 triple-doubles or whatever it was. And that's ultimately kind of what I think these awards are. I think they're legacy awards. I think that they're ways for us to look back on the seasons and try and tell a story about what happened that year. And to me, the story this year is Russell Westbrook.
Do you remember the 1997 NBA season as Karl Malone just dominating the NBA?
I don't, but that's a very controversial award, isn't it?
Right. No, and I think that lends credence to your argument. But I do think that we're in a different era, and I do think that we have the ability to understand at a deeper level. And I ultimately think that for Russell Westbrook, the highest accomplishment that he will ever be able to achieve as a basketball player in his career is the MVP award this year. He is more than deserving. This is, one of the biggest pet peeves I have about this MVP debate is the fact that everyone is like, it's so clear cut. It's the exact opposite. This is hard as hell. And both guys are equally deserving, or not equally, but very closely deserving, in my opinion. And if Russell Westbrook wins, just because I think that James Harden should win, doesn't mean that he's unworthy of it. I have no idea. I would feel differently if Kawhi or LeBron won it, but I don't think that's going to happen. Nonetheless, if the best accomplishment because of the way you play basketball is that you can win MVP, how valuable are you really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a very nuanced conversation. I won't really care if Kawhi wins. I think
I can buy it. I would disagree with that, and I would shake a fist. But it's not like it's it's not an abomination. There's 4 really good candidates this year. I think there are 2 exceptional ones. And the thing is, again, it hurts because I think that Russell Westbrook does not play winning basketball. I think that the way the NBA is played now, he has to play like that in order to maximize. But that's not winning basketball as I understand it. I think that James Harden is infuriating to watch. It's almost unwatchable when he's at the best at what he does. He's in this, as I describe it, like this postmodern pragmatism where it's like this doesn't need to be effective. Just get the stats on the board however you can. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to be sexy. They both play joyless basketball. And I think over the last few years, as pace and space has really come into pass, especially since the Spurs and Heat series and the positionless and all this stuff, joy, I think, has a lot to do with it. And I would much rather remember this season for the joy. I don't think that we have a single option when it comes to joy because Kawhi has never felt a human emotion. LeBron is always angry. And the other 2 guys put up historic seasons in basketball that I found repulsive in many senses. And so ultimately, I think that while you want to take a step back, I think that at least the way I do it is I want to take a step further. Let's really dive into this stuff and let's try to get all of the understanding that we have available to us and really and figure out who was the most valuable. And to me, that was Harden. But again, I think if LeBron wins, there's actually an issue because of how half-assed he is, even though history, I think, would be very kind to a LeBron MVP just because he hasn't won as many as he should have. And
he has 4. So
he has 4. Has he not been the MVP more or less of every season he's played, save for perhaps this one?
Right. I agree with that. So I think that's fair. I think everything you just said is fair. So those 4, I would imagine, are all on your first All-NBA team. Mm-hmm. Who is your center on the All-NBA team?
It's Anthony Davis.
Yep.
Just because of his ability to do both things. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that he was able to do offensively this year, even after Boogie came, and just exceptional basketball. He's so well-rounded and so versed in it. It's a shame that the Pelicans have sort of turned into this quasi-sideshow that no one really even seems to care that much about, that they're kind of now the new Kings with more talent because they have that Davis guy. he is incredible, and I think that this is the big trend over the next 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, just the explosion of exceptional 2-way centers.
Yeah,
there's a couple of guys who can, if Embiid comes back healthy, if Towns can get it together on the defensive end, the center position is going to, and if Gobert can even develop that offensive game a little bit more, the center position is just going to be loaded like it was the mid-'90s all over again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anthony Davis, for what it's worth, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks per game. That is insane. For those
on a team that's not that good.
No, they're terrible, to be honest.
They had to have every bit of that and more, and he was really efficient in all of that. He's just such a clean player. It was really a joy to watch him play, even though the rest of that team was really difficult to watch. Yeah,
and real quick, I just want to note, like, for people wondering, is he a forward? Is he a center? I know he's been playing more power forward with DeMarcus Cousins being there. He played 64% of his minutes at center this year, according to Basketball Reference. I think it was something like maybe like 1,700 of his 2,700 minutes came like without Alexis Ajinça, I think like DeMarcus Cousins and Omer Asik on the floor. So like truly as a center. I don't really have a problem voting for him as center in this scenario by any.
Well, I mean, what's his best position? I mean, where is the NBA right now?
It's center. It's 100% center.
So, yeah. I mean, even if just because his coach, and I believe, I like Alvin Gentry, I believe is a strong word, but I like Alvin Gentry. I don't think he's done a very good job, but, I would give him another year at least to figure it out, because I think he could really do some exceptional things with those two centers that he has. But just because his coach didn't play him at his right position the entire time doesn't mean that he's not a center.
Yeah.
That guy's a center. You put him on any other team in the NBA, save for the Knicks, and he's a center. So, he's a center.
Yeah. So second All-NBA team, I've got John Wall, I've got Stephen Curry as my guards. I've got Kevin Durant and Giannis. And then one place where I think I'm going to differ from people is I have Karl Towns as my second team All-NBA center.
Ooh.
He put up the first 25 point, 12 rebound season with 100 threes and 100 blocks in NBA history.
Yeah, no, listen. But
he's 21 first and foremost, which is beyond insane. But even throwing that out, what he did this year was beyond historic, especially in the second half.
Listen, but on the defensive end,
he's not great.
It's not there yet. And that team, for a player who able to put up numbers like that team, and again, some of this comes with just expectation, but that team woefully underperformed this year, and he was the best player on that team. I know that All-NBA differs very significantly from the MVP award. It's not as subjective, if you will, but I have a very hard time putting a guy who didn't even win 40 games in a Western Conference that wasn't all that difficult to win 40 games in this year.
Wasn't hard.
Being on that second team. I have him on my third team.
Yeah.
So, because again, you can't deny those numbers, but I just don't. A second team is a pretty high reward. It
is, and I think that Rudy Gobert is easily arguable for second team. I would imagine that's who your second team center is.
That is correct.
Yeah, I totally understand that. He was the best defensive center in the league, I think, by a wide margin this year, which is just crazy whenever you talk about how good the defensive centers are in the NBA right now. Ultimately, I think it comes down to the fact that while he improved offensively this year, he's still just not a playmaker on that end. And I understand the argument is Karl Towns isn't a playmaker defensively either. But
right.
I guess that in terms
that's fair.
of creating a top 10 NBA player or a top 20 NBA player, I think that offense is more important than defense, even at the center position.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm going to now take in the team's success. And I think that Gobert contributed a lot more to his squad this year in terms of their success. I think that the Jazz are the best competitor to the Warriors in the Western Conference, and I think a lot of that has to do with Gobert. I think people underrate how effective he can be offensively. He doesn't work against every team, but DeAndre Jordan has gotten a lot of run for really doing nothing more than being a above average defensive center and dunking the ball a lot. Rudy Gobert is an exceptional, perhaps generational defensive center, and he can dunk the ball. So, I mean, he's pretty good on the pick and roll. I think that the center position, there's a lot of argument. I mean, I don't even have Marc Gasol on any of my teams. I could easily put Marc Gasol on my second team.
Yeah. So, I think it comes down to four centers. I think it comes to, or maybe five. I'm sorry. Anthony Davis is clearly the top team. And then you can go Towns, Gobert, Gasol, Jordan. I think really anywhere 2 through 5, like the fifth best center in the NBA. I think it's ultimately those 5 and then DeMarcus Cousins at 6. But, I just went with Towns. I think that what he did this year was beyond historic and very different from what we've seen from the center position. And I understand if you want to go Gobert, if you want to go Gasol, because they contributed to winning teams. I just think that Karl Towns is a better basketball player than those guys are. Like, no disagreement. To be honest,
it just depends on how you view the all NBA team, and I think everyone views it a little bit differently. I think that the way I think that it's sort of a quasi MVP. If you were trying to build a team, how would you want to do it, and what kind of exceptional players can you get? They don't have to necessarily be the most well-rounded, which again, it just depends on how much you value defense compared to offense when it comes to Gobert and Towns. But I actually had Isaiah Thomas on my second team instead of John Wall.
I think there are 6 clear guards, and you could mix them from the second team and third team any which way you wanted to go.
Right. So I had Curry, Thomas, Durant, Giannis, and Gobert on my second team. My third team was Paul Wall, of course, because why not? And Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and then Towns. I think that we don't talk about how Jimmy Butler almost single-handedly willed a very bad basketball team into the playoffs this year. And while the Bulls were excruciating to watch in a very negative sense, the opposite of the NHL playoff sense, he does deserve to be rewarded with an All-NBA team designation, in my opinion.
Yeah, we have the same 15 players. We just have them in different orders. I have Chris Paul and Isaiah Thomas as my third team All-NBA players. I have Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green as my third team All-NBA forwards. Rudy Gobert is my third team center. I would say that the two guys that I really hated leaving off were probably Paul George and Gordon Hayward.
Interesting.
I mean, those two were just totally unbelievable. I do think there's a pretty clear delineation in terms of guards. You look at what guys like, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan did this year. I think that they would be deserving in a lot of years, but just the way that Chris Paul dictates tempo every time he's on the floor, and he's an incredible defensive player, which we'll talk about in a minute. Isaiah Thomas this year put up one of the better offensive seasons that I can remember. Ultimately, I went with John Wall over him on the second team, in part because of defense. I don't think Isaiah Thomas is the worst defensive basketball player in the NBA.
He's not far off, though.
Yeah, our defensive RPM has him as the worst defensive basketball player in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a good defensive basketball player by any stretch of the imagination, though.
Not even close.
So ultimately, I decided to downgrade him just to the third team. Whenever the margin is so close between he and what Wall does on the offensive end, maybe you could say that Isaiah Thomas is a little bit better than John Wall offensively. But, we're splitting hairs here, and ultimately, I don't think we're splitting hairs on the defensive end with those two.
Yeah, I had a tough time actually leaving off Klay Thompson and
totally
Lillard.
Totally fair with those two. Lillard, I think, was less good in the first half of the year, and that made me a little bit more okay leaving him off. Kyle Lowry missed, 20 games or so, I think. And Chris Paul obviously missed 20 games as well, but Chris Paul is just in a totally different stratosphere. When he was on the floor this year, he was probably one of the 5 best players in all of basketball. So I just decided to go with Paul, Thomas, Wall, and Curry is my 4, but I think that those other guys will get votes, and I think that you can at least make the argument.
It is interesting, though, because I think that it's fascinating that Paul George, who very much needs to make, well, he doesn't need to do anything, but would sure like to make all NBA. I think because of the gravity of that voting, people are very cognizant of putting him on or off. They have to feel very strongly about it.
Yeah.
And because there are so many good forwards this year, I didn't even factor in Hayward, who is an awesome player. But
he's their best player, and I think that's ultimately another reason why I kind of had Towns over Gobert, and it's kind of a bad reasoning why.
No, totally get that, though.
Gordon Hayward's their best player.
To be there, So, but it is interesting because nobody else on this list, to my knowledge, needs an All NBA like Paul George does to get that supermax. And man, I don't think he's going to get it just because people are going to think about it too hard.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think that more people are cognizant of it now in terms of how important it is to get this stuff right.
I didn't think about All NBA all that much. And now this year with the new CBA, you think about it really hard, and it's good because I think it's a more, people talk about Pro Bowls in the NFL. I think All Pro is a much more important distinction.
Agreed.
So I'm glad that we're starting to care more about All NBA because it is important. At the same time,
I think it's important to legacy too, though. To be honest, I mean, you look at guys trying to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, those people
making All NBA teams.
You count All NBA teams whenever you start looking at Hall of Fame arguments. So
hopefully that seeps up into the general discussion more and more as we move forward because it hasn't really been part of the baseline lexicon that we use. And if it is, I mean, it's a really good marker of who the best 15 players in the league are, and if you're one of the best at your position, and that's really what we're trying to determine at the end of every season.
Yep. I had both Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert on my third All-NBA team. They are the two clear top candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. Which way did you decide to slide with those two?
I went with Draymond just because I think Gobert. First off, it's you look at some of the tracking numbers that you can get from Synergy, and it's crazy. It's crazy how good Draymond Green is at protecting the rim.
Yep, this is something I wanted to bring up too. So I'm glad
we don't talk about that enough because the Warriors didn't have anybody close. They were relying on early in the season Kevin Durant to be a rim protector, and everyone thought that was going to be their Achilles heel, and Durant was very effective at it. When Durant went out, Draymond Green hit a defensive level that I hadn't seen since the 2015 NBA Finals, and it was really awesome to watch. His ability to play defense on anybody from 30 feet out to the hoop is unmatched in the NBA, except for when LeBron James decides he wants to be the man. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if LeBron can ride a point guard and knock him off his line in the same way that Draymond can right now. He is just so deft and clean, and you have to watch plays 3 or 4 times to see all the amazing things that Draymond Green does. I do buy the argument to a certain degree that Gobert didn't necessarily have the same level of defensive talent around him as Draymond did with Klay Thompson and Andre Iguodala.
Sure.
But the fact that Draymond, who plays a different position, plays defense in a manner that's more, I guess, befitting of the modern NBA style, and is very much a trailblazer in that regard. And the fact that their defensive impact in the paint was so similar. And while Gobert won out in that regard, of course, he's ridiculous. The fact that Draymond can do it all in such a manner and did it all in a position where he really had to, they were tied going into that they were tied going into the month of March, and Draymond pulled away in March and April for me.
So yeah, I went with Draymond Green too, and I have not exactly been quiet about the fact that I'm not a big fan of watching Draymond Green play basketball. I'm not the biggest fan of the way that he comports himself on the floor. Oh. He is very deserving of this award, though. I'm going to give you some numbers behind the things that you just said. So Rudy Gobert at the rim defensively allowed 43.9% at the rim. Do you know what Draymond Green gave up?
What was the Gobert number?
It was 43.9.
Yeah, Draymond was probably at 44.5.
Draymond was at 43.9 as well. In terms of, shots contested, Rudy Gobert led the league in shots contested at the rim. Mm-hmm. Second place, like Miles Turner, Robin Lopez is up there, Hassan Whiteside's up there. You go down a little bit, though, you get to Draymond Green at 7 per game, behind Rudy Gobert's 10. Having said that, those 7 shots per game that he contests at the rim, that's the same number as DeAndre Jordan. It's more than DeMarcus Cousins. It's more than, Tyson Chandler. It's about the same as Anthony Davis. It's about the same as Tristan Thompson. These guys are all very good defensive players, all play a ton of minutes. What Draymond was able to do this year protecting the rim, I think, was absolutely remarkable. And then you throw in the fact that he's also one of the probably 5 or 6 best perimeter defenders in all of the NBA. In the fact that he can switch literally 1 through 5 on the floor. He embodies everything that we talk about whenever we're talking about the modern NBA and the modern switching styles of defense. And I think that's worth recognizing in some capacity as well. But ultimately, it does come down to the fact that I think Draymond was just a better, more versatile defender than Rudy Gobert was this year.
Yeah, Gobert, what he did in terms of protecting the rim, and I thought it was very effective, and that was a real excellent improvement in his game. His ability to not take himself out of a play when they would run pick and pop, and his ability to figure that out and give space and really work that area. He's totally deserving of the award.
Yep.
But, man, I mean, he would given those numbers and given just the defensive impact that you see from both of those players and the versatility of Green, he would have had to have been markedly better at the rim. He would have had to have a historically great shot blocking season, to the point where no one even took a shot within 10 feet of the rim ever if he was on the court. And while it wasn't far off, to be fair, it just wasn't anything that we haven't seen from a great shot blocking season before. It's up there, but the fact that a 6'6" chubby guy can pretty much do the same thing while also guarding point guards is just not discussed enough in its ridiculousness.
Yep. Who would you have third? Did you really even consider anyone? This third guy is not in their boat, but like, who would you have third?
I hadn't given it a single thought. It'd probably be Kawhi, and I don't necessarily think that's right. Like there's something in the back of my head right now, just spitballing it, that doesn't make it seem that's right. I'm going to guess that you're going to go with Chris Paul.
No, I do have Chris Paul on my All-NBA team, or on my All-NBA defense team, but I would go Paul Millsap. The Hawks end up with the fourth best defense in the league. He's another guy that is just able to switch everything on defense. Yeah. He is so valuable to what they want to do. Like I said, they finished fourth with a 103.1 defensive rating. Paul Millsap deserves to get so much money this summer.
You mean future Minnesota Timberwolf Paul Millsap, by the way.
If he goes to the Timberwolves, they are a top 5 seed in the West next year.
And they only have 1 year to spend money, so they got to spend it well this summer. So I'm all in on this on the Paul Millsap to the Timberwolves thing, which is not getting enough buzz. But listen, Millsap was awesome. I don't think that people even watched even close to enough Atlanta games this year to understand how important he is to that defense, especially when you consider that Dwight Howard really didn't add a lot to that defense at all. And
I very strongly disagree with that, for what it's worth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that they lost a lot of their identity with him in the middle. I thought that and when you add Schroeder into the mix, it just didn't seem the same to me. And so his ability, listen, I don't think that Millsap can go 1 through 5, but his ability to go 2 through 5, I thought was extremely valuable to that team this year, who had a pretty good year for being completely forgotten about.
Yeah, they were definitely completely forgotten about. There's no doubt about that. I'm just trying to pull up what their numbers looked like at the rim this year in terms of shooting. I believe that it was quite good.
Listen. If you're going to go from Al Horford to Dwight Howard, your numbers at the rim should be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were the 5th best team at the rim this year defensively. Dwight Howard really did shut it down for them this season. I think he's deserving of a lot of credit for that. They changed their defensive identity, but it was still a strong defensive identity. I actually considered him for second team all defense. I did not end up going with him, but he was definitely on the list, I think, of guys that I wanted to, recognize. In terms of all defense teams, we can get to that now. I had Chris Paul and Tony Allen as my guards, Draymond Green, Paul Millsap as my forwards, Rudy Gobert as my center. Anything sound off to you there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just strange that I wouldn't have had Millsap on my first team. I would have had Kawhi. Yeah. But, man, isn't that weird that you don't have Kawhi Leonard on your first team? And it's not as if you can take some moral high ground stance and say that's ridiculous. Like that's just how it went this year for Kawhi defensively. Yep. And I expect him to come out incredible in the postseason. And it just shows. The more you talk about how important he is defensively to that team, the more you realize how important that is to the MVP discussion. But. We've already parsed that one fully out. And I think Klay Thompson deserves at least some run on that. That's why it was difficult to leave him off my third team All-NBA, just because his ability to, especially again once Durant went out, his ability to lock down that four positions was really, really awesome this year in the late stretch of the season. Yeah,
I'm not going to lie to you. I cheated a little bit to end up leaving him off of the all-defense team. I had Patrick Beverley and Andre Roberson as my first two guards, even though I think I might be cheating with Roberson as a guard. I know that he ends up guarding guards, but I'm not entirely sure he's eligible for the guard position. Regardless, I'm just going to cheat and do it.
Ended there.
I had Kawhi as my one forward. I had an underrated one as my fourth forward. I have Giannis as my fourth forward on the all-defense team. Because I think he just totally gives them a different element defensively that nobody else in the NBA can even come close to mustering. He was one of the top 5 guys in terms of blocks this season.
Right.
From basically the wing position. Like, he's playing some 4, but like, he played it. I guess he played a good amount of 4, but like, right. It's just crazy what that guy can do on the defensive end. He's become a legitimate stopper in terms of getting guys on the perimeter and cutting off penetration due to his length. His length genuinely changes basketball.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no disagreement.
Yeah, so I went with him. I feel like I might be one of the few that go with him, but I'm okay with that. DeAndre Jordan is my second team defensive center. I considered Anthony Davis. I considered Dwight Howard, Hassan Whiteside as well. I went with DeAndre because I think he's really good at cutting off penetration on the perimeter as well in pick and roll as he is at defending the rim. And plus, it always used to be that his defensive on-off numbers were really poor for whatever reason in terms of the way that their defense improved with him off the floor. That's totally gone away. That effect is just, I think, kind of a weird thing that was happening with him.
I think it's called the Most Bates effect.
Yes. The Most Bates effect has certainly helped him as well in terms of that statistic. But anyway, he's just an awesome defensive basketball player, and he legitimately becomes a deterrent to the way that teams decide to attack the rim.
Yeah, I didn't think that he had even close to his best defensive year this year, though I do agree that he has improved year over year in working the pick and roll, much like I said Gobert did this year as well. And that's a welcome sign. I mean, in a league that's so 1-5 pick and roll heavy or 1-4 pick and roll heavy, it's vital. And yeah, it's a tough one. It gets really tough.
They're genuinely. We don't have enough tools really to evaluate defense yet. Right. There are genuinely 7 or 8 candidates you could go with for second team center. You go Dwayne Dedmon, and I would not complain at all because that guy had a killer defensive year.
He did, but then it comes down to minutes with him, and it's just, man, it's a mess. And that also then comes into the system. I mean, everyone who plays in the Spurs system seems to be really good at defense, except for Tony Parker. So it's and
underrated here. We can just move into Coach of the Year on that. I have Pop as Coach of the Year. The reason that I went Pop is, well, A, you could have Greg Popovich as Coach of the Year every year, but correct. B, he guided a team with a bad Tony Parker, with Dwayne Dedmon in the starting lineup, with David Lee in the rotation, with Pau Gasol's somewhat. I guess he had a little bit of life in his body, but not a ton. Yeah. To 60 wins and the best defense in all of basketball. Like that seems impossible to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I had D'Antoni just because to many it's simplistic and well, you just put it in, you just gave Harden the ball and this and that. That defense isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. I think that because we had to parse between Harden and Westbrook in terms of the value of the players around them, we forget that Rockets team wouldn't even come within 20 games of the playoffs if James Harden's not there.
17th in defensive rating for what it's worth for Houston.
They were, and I think they crawled up to 12th at one point in the middle of March. I mean, they can't lock down, but they're not horrific.
Yep.
And Clint Capella's a really nice player in the middle for them there. And I just think that, sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. And for many people, that's Pop. Yep. And it's, if anyone can beseech Pop as Coach of the Year, I'd sure love to hear that ridiculous argument. But I do think that D'Antoni deserves it just because him and Daryl Morey took the bold step of, and perhaps Morey did it even more so, which is, hey, you know how we're really good at offense and not great at defense? Let's just double down on that thing we're good at.
Yep.
And it just worked. It just worked this year, and I'm not sure if it will continue to work in the future. And who knows? But I think D'Antoni has a lot of stink on him because he went to 2 inept organizations after that Suns era. Yep. And that's just not fair. He's a really good basketball coach. The fact that he is so good at coaching that people are discounting James Harden's MVP candidacy only lends credence to his Coach of the Year candidacy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I have him at second. I have Eric Spoelstra third. The fact that Miami Heat team went 41-41 is beyond my comprehension.
They were so enjoyable to watch it at times. I mean, and
Dion Waiters, James Johnson led team finished 41-41 in the NBA. I got nothing on that.
Had the third best record from December on.
And it wasn't even lucky. They had like a top 5 net rating from like
January, they were awesome.
Mid-January on. Like, it was insane.
I watched that game, their second to last game of the year, and they had such a great like college team in the NCAA tournament vibe.
Yeah,
that's just great coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you're able to, he's the whole package. It's amazing to me that people. I remember I was covering the Heat when LeBron was there, and people would kind of beseech Spo as like he was some caregiver. And didn't really do anything. And Pat Riley was pulling all the shots. And like that couldn't really have been further from the truth. And the way that he commanded respect, you see how LeBron has acted with, I think, a pretty damn good coach in David Blatt. That he didn't get along with him. You can see the Tyronn Lue thing has, if not fully deteriorated, significantly deteriorated to the point where like Larry Drew is going to be running that team if the Cavs don't make the finals next year, if they don't make the finals this year, Larry Drew's running that team next year, and like. Man, there was a little bit of time when he was a little bit skeptical of Spo, but he bought in. And for Spo to be able to do that with LeBron, who doesn't necessarily get the reputation, but has a pretty good track record of being a coach killer, we don't talk about him as an elite coach enough, and he absolutely is that. And I hope that this year firmly proved it.
Yeah, I agree. Rookie of the year, who do you have before I go into why I vote the way I do for Rookie of the Year?
Okay, well, I had Embiid.
Okay, good, because this is going to be a Joel Embiid positive podcast then.
Yeah, I mean, who else impacted his team as much as Joel Embiid? When Joel Embiid was on the court, he was not only the Rookie of the Year, he was a borderline MVP candidate, and the Sixers were a borderline playoff team.
Yeah,
and then it sucks that he only played less than 800 minutes, but like. Anyone else step up? Brogdon? I mean, he had a nice year. Was it impactful? Yeah.
Like Dario Saric had a nice year.
Dario Saric also, they're like, hey, go ahead and do whatever it is you do.
Yep. Buddy came down the stretch, had a very nice year for Sacramento.
And that was great to see because, there's so much. Listen, I was the first person to slander him. I never thought that he had this in him. I really did.
He looks great. And I'm very happy about that.
And the Kings are fun. I'm about to hop all in on the Kings. If they don't mess up, if they can get 2 picks and don't mess up, 2 high picks and don't mess up this draft, that Kings team can be fun, quick.
Yeah. I've been like kind of on that bandwagon for the last couple weeks here, like making sure people know the Kings are super fun to watch. I hope that people watch them down the stretch because they were actually like a joy to watch. I had Embiid at number 1, and I feel like the reason is because I should like kind of explain the way that I do all rookie voting and Rookie of the Year voting. I don't really care about playing a lot of minutes as a rookie. I care about the fact that you just play well and like actually show like tangible skills on a basketball floor that can contribute to winning. What Joel Embiid did this year absolutely contributes to winning. He was, for a time, maybe the best defensive center in all of basketball outside of Rudy Gobert. They have the best defense in the entire NBA when he is on the floor. I think they put up like a sub 100 defensive rating when he was on the floor this year, and might have gone up like in the last few games that he was out there. But like, yeah, he was wild good. I don't care if he played 31 games. He was just so clearly better than any other rookie. He was literally twice as good as any other rookie, to where I don't really care that Malcolm Brogdon had an awesome year. And I'm like the biggest Malcolm Brogdon stan that you will find like in the entirety of the NBA. I've been talking about him as being a good NBA player for 3 years now. And he figured it out finally. He had a great rookie year. He did it on a playoff team, and I think that on some level, showing that you can do that on a playoff team matters, as you'll see with a couple of my second team picks or first team picks. But, at the same time, what Joel Embiid did was just very different from what anyone else did this year. Yeah,
and it sucks that no one else stepped up, to be totally honest.
It does. It's a bad rookie class, and that's another reason that I don't really feel all that bad about voting Joel Embiid.
Right.
Like if we had like Karl Towns' rookie year last year, even if we had Jahlil Okafor's rookie year last year against like what Joel Embiid did this year,
right?
I would kind of consider both. I don't know which way I would fall, because in the end, like, Jahlil Okafor is very clearly a harmful basketball player on the floor, but he still put up like 17 points and 7 rebounds last year and was very good for the Sixers. As a rookie, as a 19-year-old at least, playing in the NBA, trying to figure out how to make things work. I still think he actually had a good rookie year last year. This year was a very different story, and I'm very starting to think that he is in a lot of trouble as a basketball player. But nonetheless, I went with Embiid. I went with Malcolm Brogdon 2, Dario Saric 3. I feel good about the fact that I said preseason as well that Joel Embiid and Dario Saric would be the best rookies in the NBA this year. That ended up being proven well. My other all-rookie teams, Buddy Hield and Jaylen Brown, are on my first team all-rookie. Any arguments
totally agree
there?
With that.
Second team all-rookie, Willie Hernan-Gomez, Rodney Magruder, Taurean Prince, Jamal Murray, Yogi Ferrell. I would also accept arguments for Karis LeVert. I would also accept arguments for Brandon Ingram. LeVert was really good. The only reason I didn't go LeVert is because he didn't really do anything early in the year for a team that, didn't matter at any point. You could probably make the same argument with Yogi Ferrell. I just decided to go with Yogi Ferrell over him. I think Karis LeVert will be a more impactful player in the future. I just went with one over the other. It's all rookie. Who cares?
Yeah, there was something in the back of my head that made me want Scal on that team.
He's been really good the last few weeks, but you can only do so much. It's
not enough. But if we're gonna just use the Embiid precedent, it was hard to. Well, it's hard to say that Scal wasn't one of the best rookies this year when. For the last couple of weeks, he's been really, really good.
The difference is the time of the year, though. Joel Embiid was doing this when games actually mean something. Scal was doing this when games meant nothing.
No, totally agree. And I don't think he deserves to be on the team. But it was one of those shocking things where you're like, oh, this guy's a bust. He's getting 90% DNPs, and then just all of a sudden, it's really amazing what that Cousins trade is done to the Kings. I'm not sure. If it will ultimately be a good or a bad thing. But right now, it seems like, I don't know if they're winning it, but it certainly seems a lot better to be a fan of the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. Taurean Prince and Rodney Magruder, I just want to kind of call out as guys that I don't know that a lot of people will have on their all-rookie teams, but Magruder, became a starter for the Miami Heat and really was good defensively against a lot of high-end players. They kind of threw him on a lot of really good perimeter players defensively, and he held his own. He wasn't a great defender, but he held down a starting lineup spot in a team that went 41-41 this year. That's pretty good. Taurean Prince is starting for the Hawks now. They started to surge a little bit down the stretch, and he really has been quite excellent for them. Coming down here. I mean, anyone that's a starter on a playoff team, I think, again, deserves a lot of credit. If you're a rookie doing that, especially down the stretch. Jamal Murray was good. Hernan-Gomez was also good.
Hernan-Gomez was underrated. Good.
Yeah, he was. He really was. He's going to be a nice fit with Kristaps Porzingis going forward. I think that a lot of people kind of recognize that would be the fact, given the fact that they played together at Sevilla, and we've seen them play well before. That'll continue into the future. Brandon Ingram and Marquise Chris, I think, will make these teams.
Just because of name recognition
and because of minutes.
Yeah, and I don't think that's right. Ingram had a couple of nice games, but man, it's every time I would think, oh yeah, okay, he's figuring it out, it's happening, it's all just it would go the exact opposite way. Next
he figured it out at the end of the year, but again, Scal, he figured it out when games didn't really matter.
Yeah, and I just got burned so many times throughout the year. I'm not sure if I want to buy into this late season run. I mean, it was just such a weird period of time for the Lakers that I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to consistently do something like that.
I think he's going to be a really good player in the future. I'm not worried about him long term, but for this kind of award, I'm fine leaving him off. I'm fine leaving Chris off, who I have not seen play winning basketball at all this year.
Totally agree with you on that. He'll get some numbers, but that guy is an off the bench player, probably for a bad team. Down the line. He really doesn't do much. Kenneth Faried has made a very nice career for himself as a guy with kind of a limited skill set that can really do a lot of energy things and rebound and dunk and and give you a little bit here and there on the periphery.
Chris is if Fareed could shoot.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't think that. I think that if Chris wants to be a really reliable NBA player, he has to be Fareed who could shoot. I don't think that he provides that baseline Fareedness.
Do you know what the terrifying thing is? Like right now, he is considerably worse than Fareed defensively.
Right. Right. Fareed had a pretty good year for someone who theoretically had the entire NBA passing by. Yeah. I mean, because it's not a style play. He is a power forward from the year 2003. That's not something that we look for anymore.
Yep.
There's just so much of that in Chris that it hurts. I mean, you hope that he can turn into Markieff Morris.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario, and I just don't see it right now. But no, he's a rookie.
Yeah, we'll see, and he's super young too. He's one of the younger rookies in the class.
There's so many babies out there.
There are. Sixth man of the year. I have Andre Iguodala. I think that Eric Gordon is going to win this award. I think that Andre Iguodala is very clearly the best player who comes off the bench in the NBA.
Yeah, no disagreement with that. And actually, no disagreement with everything other than you think that Eric Gordon's going to win this award. I think Iguodala will win this award.
I hope so.
I think that Gordon. Gordon's reputation as a one-way player, an offensive specialist, I think will hurt him. And what Iguodala was able to do. Listen, if we were voting for this in mid-February, Eric Gordon wins in a landslide, and Lou Williams finishes second.
Yep.
But Andre Iguodala again, and it keeps going back to this stretch. But the Warriors won 14 straight games without Kevin Durant, and that counts for something. And Andre Iguodala was as integral to that as any player on the court, including Steph Curry, in my opinion. So I think that's just going to be noted. And because Eric Gordon really can't match up with anything, I mean, it's not even a conversation when it comes to the defensive end. And Iguodala really kind of put on some nice offensive numbers late in the year. I think that people will be swayed towards the more all-around player on the better team.
Yep. Most improved player of the year?
I had Isaiah Thomas, actually.
I'm okay with that, to be honest. I mean, making the leap that he made, unbelievable. Right. I went with Giannis. Giannis becoming like one of the 10 best players in the NBA was insane. The fact that he became the first player to finish in the top 20 in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks is just beyond insanity to me for how young he is. If you told me he won this award again next year after he wins MVP, I would not be surprised either. But yeah, I'm going to go with Giannis. The leap that he made is unbelievable.
I ultimately just don't want to give it to somebody who doesn't need it. This is as good as Isaiah Thomas will ever play. And he's not going to make All-NBA first team. He's probably not going to make All-NBA second team for a lot of guys. That's going to be an interesting one to see how that pans out. Mm-hmm. I think that most improved player is sort of a bullshit award, so... and you can parse it however you want. He certainly improved, and he was vital to his team this year. And again, he's not even going to finish in the top 5 in MVP, I don't believe. So, because I think Giannis will, and Giannis will be a perennial MVP candidate until his cyborg heart dies.
Yeah.
So, I think you give it to Isaiah Thomas just on the principle of he deserves some hardware from this season.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Do you have anything else you want to talk about here, Dieter, before we get out of here?
I think that the Celtics are probably going to lose in the first round of the Bulls.
Dieter, I know you're from Chicago. Now, come on.
No,
come on.
You know you've had plenty of beers with me and know how much I hate this Bulls team.
That's why I'm so shocked right now. Like, I don't even know what to say.
I know. This Celtics team kind of sucks right now.
Yeah, not enough to lose to a Bulls team that doesn't want to play together anymore, I don't think.
I don't know, man. I mean, there's something. Listen, if Dwayne Wade was out, I'd be all in on this, just because I don't know. There's something weird about this Celtics team. I wrote last night about how they're the worst 1 seed ever, and the more I dove into it, I was just looking for an out, just constantly looking for an out, and I couldn't find one. I mean, I was digging deep. I mean. I was going to try to hold up the fact that the Celtics starting lineup had like a really good record, or their best, 5 had a really good record. And I couldn't even hold that one up, because then you watch their game against the Cavs and they just got smoked. There's nowhere to hide Thomas on defense. There's nowhere to hide him on some teams. And I think that the Bulls are one of those teams where there's nowhere to hide him.
I mean, for what it's worth, looking at Kevin Pelton's, potential upsets article right now, and I think Kevin's one of the smartest people you'll ever meet.
No question.
He does have the Bulls-Celtics series a more likely upset than the Clippers, than, the Wizards losing, than, than the Bucks losing, or the Raptors losing. I'm sorry. Like, he has this as like a very clear series, which is kind of shocking to me.
You can see what happens when a small forward and a small forward that can slide up to the 4 or slide down to the 2, so like a true wing, wants to take over a game against the Celtics. There's nothing they can really do to stop it. And but you can't really put Jay Crowder on Jimmy Butler all game.
Oh, God, they will, though. And
they will.
There will be a fight, and it's going to be amazing.
Right, but Jimmy Butler's also going to drop 35 points and dish out 9 assists a game. And if the Bulls run through Jimmy Butler, they have a chance to win. And I don't think they have any choice but to right now. And there's just something weird about Jimmy Butler versus the Celtics team, and the fact that I really don't like the Celtics team at all.
It's going to be funny if Jimmy Butler beats the Celtics.
That's where my head's at. Listen, the Celtics are a much better team than the Bulls.
Yeah.
When we just remove all the statistics, who would you rather have? Oh my God, it's not even close. But matchup-wise, it's a really bad matchup. I'm pretty sure they split the regular season series, and Butler can get his. And if Butler gets his, the Bulls play effective-ish basketball. It's when he has to share it with Rondo and Wade and all that stuff. With Wade coming out from injury and seeing the team actually make a playoff run without him, I think he's going to take a back seat. Rondo's, I don't know if he's even going to play or not because of that injury. There's something, and Mirotic just having the RFA season for all RFA seasons. It's man, there's I'm telling you right now, get on Bovada, get on whatever you want, take that Bulls line. And you probably can't even get that great of odds right now.
Maybe not. I wonder. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe you've convinced me a little bit on this.
Yeah.
All right, Dieter, I got to get going. I got to go see some hockey. I got to go have some fun. Down in Anaheim, it's a long drive in the middle of rush hour traffic. I have to go pick up Laura from work. This is going to be a fun day. Dieter, tell the people where they can find you over on social media and on the internet.
Yeah, foxsports.com on the internet and social media. It's at D Kurtenbach, Kurtenbach. I will tweet out an eclectic brand of sports and nonsense.
Yes, he's a fun follow. Good dude. You should follow him over there. You should follow his work over at Fox Sports. He actually does. You get a reputation as a hot take guy, but you actually do think things out well. And I actually think it's a bit of a misnomer that you're a hot take guy.
Well, the irony is I am a hot take guy. I'm just a well-thought-out hot take guy.
That's true.
Sometimes my perception of reality is significantly different than yours.
That's fair. I will accept that. This has been the Game Theory Podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Android, anywhere that there are podcasts. I think we're up there right now. I would appreciate some ratings, reviews, subscriptions to the show. It really helps to get the word out there about the podcast, be it on iTunes, on Stitcher, on whatever podcasting app that you listen to. The iTunes ones particularly help us because they help us move up the ratings. So if you could leave some ratings and reviews, I would appreciate that personally. We'll be back next Monday. We're going to talk some college basketball. I need to get some fire Dedrick Lawson, KJ Lawson, Memphis takes off of my chest again, because that entire situation is just hilarious to me. We'll talk about Miles Bridges deciding to stay at Michigan State for some weird reason then as well. But until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.